Hey YouTube, it's Robert back here with another video, and if you clicked on this video, it might just be because you're currently sitting at home with a small hole in your drywall that looks something like this. And before you start panicking about the bill that you're gonna have for a handyman to come out and fix it, or a security deposit that you're gonna lose over a little damage like this, just take a quick breath and relax, because we're gonna look at a really quick and easy and inexpensive solution that's perfect for beginners who have never messed with small drywall repairs like this before. Now, in general, drywall repairs are not the end of the world, and even some of the larger damaged areas can be do-it-yourself projects. But today we're gonna start at the absolute ground level. For those of you that have never really done this, we gotta walk before we can run. And so we're gonna start with this little hole by using this product from 3M that's kind of an all-in-one patch and repair kit. It's gonna offer us the spackle, a putty knife, sanding block, and also the mesh sheet that we're gonna adhere to this to apply everything to. And you can pick something like this up at your local hardware store, or if you're an Amazon shopper, follow one of my affiliate links down below and you can support this channel by purchasing it on there, as I do get a very small commission on that. And after we finish patching our hole with the wall hole repair kit, we're gonna go ahead and also use this knockdown texture spray that's specifically designed for the type of texture that I have on this wall. We're also going to use this knockdown knife, although if you didn't want to use this, you could also use the putty knife from the hole repair kit. This is just gonna make it a little bit easier for us. And it's never great when you smash a little hole in your drywall, but it's always great when you smash the like button while you're watching my video. So if you could take a quick second to do that for me, it's a huge support to my channel. It's free to do, and it can be fun to get a chance to smash something without having to worry about fixing it afterwards. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that the area surrounding this hole is nice and clean, so that when we stick our mesh up against it, we don't have any dust or any of that that messes with the adhesive bonding to the wall. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the wax paper from our mesh, and we're gonna feel the one side of it is tacky. That's the side, obviously, that is going to go against the wall, covering that hole. We wanna try and center that in place and just get it stuck to it. We can even take our putty knife to kind of spread that, but in this case, we're just using my hand here, and that's gonna do the trick. We're gonna go ahead and open up our spackling compound. We need to mix it a little bit before we start spreading it onto the wall. We can do that right in the container, or if you have a small piece of cardboard, you wanna use kind of like a painter's palette, you can mix it on there. We're gonna go ahead and start spreading our spackling compound onto our mesh. We're gonna work our way from the inside out. We wanna go beyond the edges of the mesh, and we always wanna be moving out so that we feather it into the rest of the wall nice, kind of gets thinner as we move out, and we don't risk coming in and peeling any of this mesh back. And as you can see, I'm using a fairly liberal amount here. I don't want to see any of the mesh, and I'm trying to taper it off as we move towards the rest of the wall, but we're gonna go back in and sand this, and we don't want to see that grid pattern in there as we start to bring it back down. And you can see we've gone well beyond the area of not just the hole, but that whole mesh sheet. And that's okay. When we sand this back down, we're gonna have a chance to further blend and smooth it out, and then add our texture, and then we'll add our paint to make this as uniform with the rest of the wall as possible. We do need to give this a little bit of a chance to dry, so while we're waiting for that, we can go ahead and clean off our putty knife and any other little cleanup that we wanna do between this and the next phase. And then once it's fully dry, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take our sanding pad, and we're just gonna start to smooth this out, get rid of any of the high ridges. We wanna try and bring it down where it's nice and level, but we don't wanna risk getting it all the way down to the mesh. We don't wanna see the mesh when we do this. We just wanna get it smoothed out and kind of ready to be feathered into our existing drywall here. So once we've got it all smoothed out, we'll be ready to go ahead and apply our texture to this to try and blend it in with the texture on the rest of the wall, and then we'll be able to paint it. And texture matching is definitely something that has a little bit of an artistic element to it, and even your drywall professionals will tell you that it really takes learning a feel and how to have the right touch for applying texture and actually blending it in and matching to walls. So, you know, don't expect that this is going to be something that you're going to get a perfect blend from this to the rest of the wall, because that's difficult. And depending on what type of texture that you have, the whole process can change a little bit. Fortunately, I have a kind of a knockdown type of texture on this. Again, knockdowns can all look very different depending on who did it and what kind of touch that they applied to it, and that's what makes it a little bit tricky. But for our purposes, I just don't want you guys thinking that you have to achieve perfection on this, because I'm certainly not going to do it. I'm not a professional at this, and so you're going to get a real great look at what an amateur attempt on a drywall texture match looks like with this one. All right, and now we're gonna use our wall texture knockdown spray. I've built myself a little bit of a spray guard here with that piece of cardboard that I used as a palette earlier, and I've also put some tape along the top of this wall here just to kind of prevent from it getting any spray places that I don't really want it to be. It'll make my cleanup easier. So we shake this up for about 60 seconds, and then we can set the spray setting to kind of go lighter or heavier depending on what type of texture the rest of our wall has, what we're trying to match to. And if you want to get a little bit of a test for it before you actually start shooting onto your wall, if you get a large piece of cardboard, you can kind of do some practice runs on that before we actually do it on the real thing. And again, just like before when we took our patch further out than just the affected area, we want to do the same thing so that we can kind of feather in our texture to the rest of the wall and just make any of those differences a little bit more gradual, as opposed to having these really fine lined areas where it's just the patch is that much more noticeable. And if you feel like I've built it up a little bit too much in one area, I can use something like a bunched up paper towel even, or they have drywall texture sponges. And I can just kind of push in, blot, pull it out a little bit in some areas, and then kind of make sure that I feel like it's a little bit more evenly distributed for when I go in with my actual putty knife. While we give our intended area 6 to 8 minutes to start to dry a little bit, we can go ahead and clean up any of the perimeter area, make sure that we get all of that excess off before any of that starts to dry. Okay, and now that we've given it a chance to dry, we're gonna go ahead and take our knockdown knife or putty knife and pull this down to create our actual knockdown texture. The key here is that we want to be really light with our touch and just let this thing kind of float across the top. We don't need to push down hard. Worst case scenario, if we go too light, we can always pass over it again going a little bit harder, but we can't go from a stronger push to a lighter push. You can see I've got it knocked down here. Hopefully the texture's showing up all right on this, and you'll kind of notice how it's even feathered into the others. But you know, I've got some of these areas in here that are really large flattened areas, as well as a lot of kind of the smaller texture, and that's very consistent with how the texture was done by the original drywall contractor. You can even see down here at the bottom there's some really large flattened areas, and then there's a lot of very small tight kind of pocketed patches. So like I said, with each particular person that goes in and does this, they're each going to have a little bit of a different touch, And so that's part of what makes this really tricky when we're trying to do this on our own, and we don't have a lot of experience with that. As I said, this is certainly not my area of expertise, so it's just, you know, some trial and error as a DIYer, and with each one that you do, you get a little bit of a better feel for it. But don't go too hard on yourself, and as I mentioned before, maybe practice a little bit on some cardboard and get a little bit of a better feel for it, and then go ahead and take your pass on the actual patch. Go ahead and let this dry for several hours before we attempt to paint over it. If you want to give it even more time, you're not going to hurt anything by allowing it more drying time, but you definitely don't want to paint it too soon. And then once we've given it a chance to fully dry, we can go ahead and start painting it. And you guys will notice I am a terrible painter. I don't have a lot of patience for, you know, the feel of this. I don't particularly enjoy painting walls, so let that be encouraging to you that, you know, you could definitely do a better job on the painting side than what I probably do. My mom loves painting. She's really good at it. You'd think that with her as an example, I would have acquired a little bit of a better skill set with this. But you put your efforts where you enjoy, and this is not an area that I particularly enjoy. And with these products, we don't really need to prime it first, but we do probably want to plan to have a couple coats to make sure that we get all the drywall color gone and just kind of get it spread out evenly. So there's our finished result. You can see that up in the corner where we did our patch repair, it's, you know, not perfect, but the reality is the rest of the wall wasn't really perfect or entirely consistent either. So I had that kind of in my favor, along with the fact that this is in an area that's not really easily seen and usually has some bar stools in front of it. So that really worked to my advantage. But, you know, looking at the texture there, I'm pleased, you know, as somebody that is not a professional at this at all, certainly not a professional in terms of the texturing and painting, which is really what drives the final result on this as much as anything. But I think it turned out pretty good. So I'm pleased with it. And if you're at home and you're going to tackle a project like this, you know, set realistic expectations for yourself. And it is something that I think most of you would be surprised with what you can accomplish. All right, if you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button for me and comment down below with how it turned out for you, and if you have any additional questions about the process. Again, my name's Robert, and I'm here to help with all your remodel needs. So until next time, happy remodeling and have a great day.